Before we go any further, if you're drawn to dark truths, hidden motives, and crimes that refuse to stay buried, hit subscribe, tap like, and drop a comment right now. The stories here don't fade when the video ends, they follow you. Welcome back. And tonight, you're stepping into a case that shattered a quiet American town and exposed how far someone will go to protect a lie. At 2:17 a.m., the house was still awake. The lights were on in the kitchen, the television hummed softly in the living room, and the front door was unlocked, wide open, as if someone had stepped outside and expected to return within seconds. But Emily Carter never did. By the time police arrived on Willow Creek Drive, the cold air carried a tension that didn't belong in a neighborhood like this. No screaming neighbors. No broken windows. No sign of forced entry. Just silence, the kind that presses down on your chest when something is terribly wrong. Emily's phone sat on the kitchen counter, face down. Her purse was neatly placed on a chair. Her car was still in the driveway, keys hanging on their hook by the door. People don't vanish like this. Not without a reason. And not without someone knowing exactly what happened. Emily Carter was 32 years old, a financial analyst working remotely for a Chicago firm, recently married, and by all public appearances, living a clean, structured, successful life. The kind of life that doesn't end with a midnight disappearance. Her husband, Daniel Carter, was the one who made the call. "I woke up and she was gone," he told the dispatcher, his voice controlled but tight. "She wouldn't just leave. Something's wrong." Officers arrived within 12 minutes. What they found raised more questions than answers. The bed hadn't been slept in. Not on Emily's side. The sheets were smooth, untouched, like she'd never gone to bed at all. A half-finished glass of wine sat on the kitchen counter, still cold to the touch. The back door was locked from the inside. But from the inside, Detective Laura Mitchell, a veteran investigator with 18 years in major crimes, stood in the doorway and felt it immediately, that instinctual chill that told her this wasn't a simple missing person case. "This feels staged," she muttered. And she was right. Daniel Carter sat at the dining table, hands folded, posture perfect. He answered every question calmly. Too calmly. Yes, they'd argued earlier that night, but couples argue. No, he didn't hear her leave. He'd taken a sleep aid. He slept through everything. He woke up at 6:30 a.m., noticed she wasn't there, and panicked. But panic didn't look like this. His pulse barely changed. His answers were precise. Rehearsed. Detective Mitchell had seen this before. Not guilt, control. "Where were you between midnight and 6 a.m.? she asked. "In bed," Daniel replied without hesitation. "Asleep." That answer would become the foundation of his defense. And the first crack in his story. By sunrise, the case exploded. Search teams flooded the neighborhood. Helicopters circled overhead. Neighbors whispered behind curtains. Emily's photo appeared on every local news channel before noon. And then something strange surfaced. Security footage. A neighbor's door camera captured movement at exactly 2:17 a.m. The video was grainy, barely visible, but clear enough to show a figure standing in the Carter driveway. Not running. Not struggling. Standing still. Waiting. The figure remained there for almost 40 seconds, and then vanished off camera. No vehicle sounds. No footsteps. No shouting. Just gone. Detective Mitchell replayed the clip again and again. "That's not a stranger," she said quietly. "That's someone who knows exactly where they are." Inside the house, forensic techs began pulling threads. No blood. No signs of a fight. But something felt off in the living room. The couch cushions had been rearranged. A rug slightly crooked, as if it had been moved and carefully placed back. Under ultraviolet light, faint smears appeared near the hallway baseboard. Not blood. Cleaning solution. Someone had cleaned. Thoroughly. Methodically. And people don't deep clean at 2 a.m. unless they're trying to erase something. As investigators dug into Emily's digital life, another layer emerged. Emily had been searching for something. Divorce attorneys. Offshore accounts. Property records tied to Daniel's name. Properties Emily didn't know existed. Then came the emails. Unsent drafts in her inbox. I know what you did. I'm not going to protect you anymore. If something happens to me, look at Daniel. Those messages were dated 3 days before she disappeared. Detective Mitchell felt the room tighten. This wasn't just a marriage falling apart. This was a threat. When Daniel was brought in for a second interview, the tone shifted. Detectives pressed harder. Asked about the emails, the hidden accounts, the properties. For the first time, Daniel blinked. Emily misunderstood things, he said carefully. She was stressed. Emotional. Emotional enough to think you were involved in something illegal? Mitchell asked. Daniel leaned back in his chair. People imagine things when they're scared. That's when Mitchell leaned forward. Were you scared, Daniel? Silence. A long one. By the end of the first week, pressure mounted. Media speculation exploded. Online forums accused Daniel outright. Protesters gathered outside the house with signs demanding justice. Then the search dogs hit on something. Behind the Carter home, beyond the tree line, was a storm drainage system that fed into an old, sealed maintenance tunnel, one that hadn't appeared on updated city maps. The entrance was hidden beneath brush and debris. When police pried the rusted gate open, the smell told them everything. Inside the tunnel they found personal items. Emily's scarf, her watch, and something else. A single latex glove, the kind used for cleaning. Detective Mitchell stared at the evidence bag, her stomach sinking. Because the glove wasn't Emily's size. It was Daniel's. But the real shock came hours later. A forensic accountant called Mitchell directly. You need to see this, he said. Daniel Carter had transferred $2.3 million into an offshore account 6 hours after Emily vanished. 6 hours. Not days. Not weeks. Hours. Mitchell felt the weight of the case shift instantly. This wasn't panic. This was preparation. As night fell over Willow Creek, Detective Mitchell returned to the house one last time. She walked slowly through the living room, then down the hallway, stopping at a door that had been overlooked. The basement. Daniel had said it was storage only. But no reason to go down there. Mitchell signaled to the team. They forced the lock. And when the door creaked open, what they found at the bottom of the stairs rewrote everything they thought they knew about Emily Carter's disappearance. If you think this case is already dark, trust me, you haven't seen anything yet. I was going to reveal what was hidden beneath that house, and why someone was willing to erase a life to keep it secret. Stay with me. If this case is already pulling you in, stay close, because what investigators uncovered next split this story wide open. And if you have a theory forming in your mind right now, don't keep it to yourself. People who follow cases like this know, the smallest detail changes everything. The basement smelled wrong. Not like rot. Not like death. Worse, chemical clean. Bleach layered over something older, heavier, and impossible to erase. The concrete steps descended into a space that felt deliberately forgotten, as if the house itself wanted to pretend it didn't exist. Detective Laura Mitchell took the first step down. The light flickered on, revealing a room far more organized than Daniel had described. Plastic storage bins labeled in neat handwriting. Power tools mounted on the wall. A workbench wiped spotless, too spotless. And then they saw the floor. Freshly poured concrete. Not enough to finish the entire basement. Just a rectangular section, roughly 6 feet long. One officer muttered under his breath, "That's not storage." Mitchell didn't answer. She was staring at the edges, uneven, rushed. The kind of work done by someone racing against time, not a contractor following a plan. They called it in immediately. As crime scene techs prepared to cut through the slab, Mitchell noticed something else. A security camera mounted above the basement door, its lens angled downward. It wasn't connected. The wires had been deliberately cut. When the concrete was broken open, the room fell silent. There was no body. Not yet. Instead, they found drag marks, faint impressions pressed into the soil beneath the slab. Something heavy had been moved, and then removed. This wasn't a burial. It was a temporary solution. And that realization was far more terrifying. Because it meant Emily Carter had been alive, at least long enough to be moved. Back upstairs, Daniel Carter sat in the interrogation room for the third time in 4 days. The calm mask he'd worn earlier was starting to fracture. Mitchell placed photos on the table. The basement. The concrete. The cut camera wires. "You told us the basement was storage," she said. "You forgot to mention the renovation." Daniel stared at the images. "Too long. I don't go down there," he said finally. "Emily handled the house." That was the moment Mitchell knew. He didn't say we. He said Emily. Past tense. While Daniel deflected, another team followed the money. The offshore transfer led to a shell company in Malta. That shell company paid a private logistics firm based out of Nevada. And that firm specialized in one thing: unregistered freight movement. Not drugs. Not weapons. People. Someone had paid to move something, or someone, quietly across state lines. And the payment window lined up perfectly with the hours after Emily disappeared. If you're watching this and thinking, "This feels bigger than one marriage," you're right. And if you believe this was planned long before that night, let me know. Drop your theory below. Cases like this are solved by people who notice patterns others miss. Detectives pulled Daniel's call logs. At 1:48 a.m., minutes before Emily vanished, Daniel placed a call to a burner phone. The call lasted 12 seconds. At 2:19 a.m., 2 minutes after the figure was seen on the driveway camera, the burner phone placed a call back. That phone had pinged a tower near the industrial outskirts of the city, an area filled with warehouses, freight yards, and private airstrips. Mitchell felt the case tilt again. Emily hadn't walked out. She had been handed off. Then came the witness. A rideshare driver named Thomas Reed came forward after seeing Emily's photo on the news. He'd picked up a woman matching her description around 2:30 a.m., less than 3 miles from the Carter home. "She was quiet," he said. "Didn't say much. But she kept looking back. Like she was afraid someone was following us." He dropped her near an abandoned office complex. "She didn't request the ride through the app. Someone else did. If you've made it this far, you already know. This isn't random. And stories like this don't unfold unless someone thinks they're untouchable. If you're hooked right now, stay with this channel. The truth always comes out, sometimes slower than we want, but harder than anyone expects." Investigators ran the pickup location. The abandoned complex wasn't abandoned anymore. Inside, they found signs of recent activity. Food containers. A mattress. Restraints discarded in a trash bin. And blood. Emily's blood. Enough to confirm she'd been injured, not enough to confirm she died. Hope flickered. But it didn't last long. The burner phone rang again that night. This time, Mitchell answered. The voice on the other end was distorted, mechanical. "You're looking in the wrong place," it said. "She's not yours anymore." The call ended. Tracing it led nowhere. Daniel Carter watched from his cell as news helicopters circled overhead. The calm was gone now. In its place, irritation, anger, fear. He'd lost control of the narrative. And people like Daniel don't panic when they're innocent. They panic when the plan is collapsing. Then the unthinkable happened. The offshore account emptied. Every dollar gone. And in its place, a message left for the bank's compliance officer. Payment complete. That same night, a body was discovered nearly 200 miles away, buried shallow, rushed, careless. But it wasn't Emily. It was the logistics firm's owner. Execution style. A warning. The kind meant to close mouths permanently. If this twist caught you off guard, you're not alone. And if you think Daniel Carter is still the only villain in this story, you might want to rethink that. Hit subscribe, because what comes next exposes a network that never expected to be seen. As dawn broke, Mitchell stood over the crime scene, staring at the body bag being zipped closed. This wasn't damage control anymore. This was escalation. Someone was cleaning up loose ends. And Emily Carter was still missing. But not forgotten. Because 3 hours later, a package arrived at the police department. No return address. Inside was Emily's watch, still ticking. And a note. "You're running out of time." This doesn't just reveal what happened to Emily Carter. It reveals who was really in control, and who was never meant to survive. If you think you're ready for the ending, you're not. If you've stayed this far, you already know this isn't just a disappearance anymore. It's a countdown. And before this story ends, I want you to ask yourself one question. Who do you think deserves justice here? Keep that answer in mind, because the truth is about to make it uncomfortable. The watch was still ticking. Detective Laura Mitchell held it carefully between gloved fingers, the faint mechanical sound echoing louder than it should have in the evidence room. Emily Carter's watch had been water-resistant, scratch-resistant, and durable enough to survive years of daily wear. But it wasn't indestructible. There were tiny flecks of dirt lodged in the clasp. Soil not native to Willow Creek. Soil found near coastal marshlands. Mitchell didn't hesitate. She knew exactly where to look next. Daniel Carter was arrested at dawn. Not for murder. Not yet. He was charged with financial crimes, obstruction of justice, and conspiracy to commit unlawful restraint. Enough to hold him. Enough to break him. In the interrogation room, the confidence was gone. His posture slumped. His eyes darted toward the door every time footsteps passed. "You lied to us," Mitchell said calmly. "About the basement. About the money. About Emily." Daniel swallowed hard. "You don't understand what she was threatening." "Then help me understand," Mitchell replied. Daniel laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. "She thought exposing me would make her safe." That was the first time he admitted it. Emily hadn't disappeared by accident. She had been silenced. Investigators traced the soil to a stretch of coastline in southern Louisiana, an area riddled with private docks, abandoned fisheries, and unregulated freight routes. The kind of place people go when they don't want to be seen. Search teams moved fast. Too fast. Because someone else was already there. If you're watching this and thinking, someone always talks, you're right. And in cases like this, it's rarely the mastermind. It's the person who realizes they're expendable. If you believe Daniel wasn't acting alone, say it out loud in the comments. You won't be the only one. They found the shack just after sunset. Inside was evidence of prolonged captivity. Chains bolted into concrete. Medical supplies. Handwritten notes, Emily's handwriting. One sentence repeated over and over. "If you find this, tell them I tried." In the corner, buried beneath a tarp, they found a shallow grave. Empty. Freshly disturbed. Emily had been there. And then she'd been moved again. Back in custody, Daniel was unraveling. "They promised she'd be released," he said, voice shaking. "Once everything was transferred. Once the accounts were closed." Mitchell leaned in. Promised by who? Daniel hesitated. That hesitation sealed his fate. "You were never in control," Mitchell said. "You were just useful." Daniel's eyes filled with something close to terror. Because he knew she was right. The final lead came from an unexpected place. A comment. An anonymous message left under a local news clip about the case. "Check the tide schedules. She was moved when the water was lowest." That comment led them to a stretch of marshland exposed only during rare tidal windows. And there, half submerged beneath reeds and mud, they found her. Emily Carter was alive. Barely. If this moment hit you hard, take a second, like this video. Stories like this survive because people stay with them until the truth is found. And if you believe Emily's survival doesn't mean this case is over, you're absolutely right. Emily's recovery revealed everything. The logistics firm wasn't working alone. Daniel's money had funded a private network that specialized in clean exits, making people disappear when they became liabilities. Emily was never meant to be killed immediately. She was leverage. But when law enforcement closed in, the plan changed. The people holding her panicked. And panic leaves trails. Daniel Carter took a plea deal. He named names. He testified. And he will spend the rest of his life behind bars. Not as the architect of the crime, but as the man arrogant enough to believe he could control something built to consume people like him. The network collapsed within months. Assets seized. Operators arrested. Routes exposed. Justice, real justice, took its time. But here's the part that still haunts investigators. Emily testified that on the night she was taken, the man who led her out of the house whispered something before handing her off. "You should have stayed quiet." That man was never identified. No footage. No fingerprints. No name. If this ending unsettled you, it should have. And if you want more stories where the truth fights its way out of the dark, subscribe now. Because the next case makes this one look merciful. They thought the danger ended when Emily was found. But somewhere out there, someone who helped make her disappear was never caught. And they're still watching.